chapters Introduction and Manifold, Hose Assembly and Connection, Deflation Procedure, Stowing System, Inflation Procedure, Fittings and Links.
Hey, I'm Brad with GNU Brothers Off-Road and Recovery. We're here today to go through the basic instructions on the GnuMatic 4-way inflation deflation kit. We'll start by unpacking the kit, showing you what's in it. The heart of the kit is the manifold with the gauge. 0 to 200 psi gauge. It has a light on the back. You hold the on button. It turns the light on the back. Again, 0 to 200 psi. It has two quick disconnect chucks for each leg that goes down each side of the vehicle, and a valve for opening and closing. Okay, next we have the hose assembly. The hose goes down, there's one for each side of the vehicle. You uncoil the hose. There's an end that goes into your manifold. It's a quick disconnect. Goes into your manifold here. And then goes down the side of the vehicle. One for each tire. So a good rule of thumb when you're hooking all this up is to make sure your valve is closed. You hook up both sides, your valve is closed, your gauge is on. You come down the side, you reach for one of your Haltech chucks. So these chucks lock on to your valve stem. You open the chuck by pulling the sleeve back, push onto the valve stem, close the chuck. It's a closed system now. The valve is normally closed, the chuck is normally closed. So when you power up your system, you're not going to dump air out the other side. Come back to the back. Same thing, sleeve back, push your chuck on, and lock. Now your right-hand side system is hooked up, we'll do the other side. Okay, so in order to deflate, we've got everything hooked up, our 4 tires, our valve is closed, we're at 30 psi. We're going to deflate to 15 psi, which will be the trail pressure for the day. So in order to deflate, you open the valve. You'll see your pressure drops to 0, so you got to go by time. It usually takes 2.5 minutes to deflate these tires down to trail pressure, so we're going to start timing. So at 2 minutes, we're down to 15.3 psi, so we're going to call that our trail pressure. Okay, so now we're at our trail pressure of 15 psi. We're going to disconnect the system and stow it away. Important to remember, you disconnect the chucks from the tires first. And the reason you do that is if you disconnect this quick disconnect first, you are going to dump air out of your system. So you're not going to be at your desired pressure anymore. So we do the tires first, then we come back to this. To disconnect the tires, exactly the opposite of what we did to connect them. You pull back on the sleeve. There it is, normally closed, so you don't leak any more air. Okay, once your 4 corners are disconnected, now you can disconnect the hoses from the manifold. Pull back on the sleeve, take your disconnects off, make sure you turn off your gauge, and now we stow the system. Okay, to coil the system, I find it easier to hold your hose kit at the T and start with one channel at a time. You coil it up to about 1 foot. Important part here is you want it to fit inside your bag. So you coil it up about 1 foot, you turn it around, and then do the other channel. Take this one up. And now you just wrap it up with your Velcro. And it's ready to go in your bag. So once you're done, your hoses are coiled up, put them back in the bag. There's a pocket in the front of the bag. Put your gauge into the pocket face down to protect the gauge. And you'll see the gauge fits nicely in the hole that's created by the hose to help protect it even more. And you're ready to go. And a neatly packed hose will be easier to deploy when it comes time to air up again.
So now you're probably done your trail time and it's time to air up. So the important thing is to uncoil the hoses on both sides of the vehicle first. Have your compressor connected. Remember to check that your positive and negative leads correctly. I personally like putting the compressor on the ground so it doesn't vibrate and fall off the vehicle. If it's a dirty trail run, you can always use something like a floor mat to protect it. And if you put it under the vehicle, you have less chance of kicking it as you're walking around the vehicle. So I always start by reconnecting the hoses to the manifold so that I don't accidentally dump more air out of the tires as I'm reconnecting them to the vehicle. So now we'll reconnect the 4 tires, connect the compressor, and we'll start timing it.
So when you open your kit, you're going to find a whip hose, a 3/8 inch hose with 2 fittings. One fitting will be matched to the output of your compressor. So I build each kit to match your compressor. The other end will go on to your manifold. Okay, so now we're at trail pressure. We're going to air up to street pressure. We're going to go from 15 psi up to 30. Important that before you start your compressor, you open the valve to your system. Otherwise, you are pressurizing just the whip hose and you run the risk of overpressuring your compressor. We're also going to do this with the engine running. That way the voltage is higher, your compressor is operating at a more efficient voltage, and you run less chance of depleting your battery. So now we have the engine running. We're going to open our valve, start the compressor. So now that we're back up to street pressure, it's important that we do things in order. So we need to turn the compressor off before we close the valve. So we shut the compressor off, we close the valve, then we can shut the engine down. Now the system is pressurized to street pressure. Also important that we unhook the tires from the system before we unhook this. And the reason for that is if we unhook this side now, we are just going to lose the air that we just put in the tires. So we unhook the tires first, then we unhook the system and stow the kit away. So the reason I don't stock these kits and you can't just buy one off the shelf is they have to be made for each compressor and air source. If you look at the Air products, the 440 has a 3/8 inch output, the 400 has a 1/4 inch output, the Smitty's both have a Japanese Nitto fitting as their output, and the ARBs both have a female 1/4 inch industrial output. So I make each kit to suit whatever air source you have. And if you have an air tank, you can pretty much have any kind of fitting on that. So each kit is made to fit your air source and the length is made to fit your vehicle. Also with your kit, you'll find this adapter that goes onto your manifold and allows you to use your kit with shop air or gas station air. So it'll have a Schrader valve at the end of it to mate to your kit. So in order to prevent yourself from losing this, you should build yourself a GnuMatic kit. So basically a kit that you go to every time you have a tire issue. You can have some plugs in there for repairing your tires on the trail. You should have a couple of spare valves, emergency valves, in case you blow a valve on a trail. Just this kit you go to every time you need something for a tire. So I just leave that in this kit. That way I know where it is all the time.
For latest product information, please visit our website at GnuBrothers.com.